Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another show. I'm about 3.5 hours after starting the Let's Talk Arsenal show. We've done a podcast because it just happens to be that we played a Thursday game again. And I was reminded, because I'm wearing the same hat that I was during that show. And someone texted me between those shows saying your hat is very appropriate for an Arsenal stream. For the amount of players that get injured at Arsenal, which I never really thought about, but now it makes sense. And we're going to talk quite a bit, I feel, today about a certain player that was injured, but we'll go into that a little bit more in a second as I'm joined by my guests as we crack on with today's podcast. Why do I do this to myself? Why do I do it? I mean, I set up this way of, maybe I set up this thing where people could book when they wanted to come on podcast, and of course, it would be that these guys get in cahoots with each other. And I know that's not a sexual thing.
Oh no, it is.
And would book onto the exact same podcast. Good evening, everyone in the chat box. Evening, everyone. Nice to have you in here. I'm sure we'll get into good evening, Good Gunners podcast. Tell Owen he spells his name wrong. It says Nodak Gouda. So, to be fair, I did enjoy your video, Mike, of trying to pronounce his name. I
still haven't gotten it down yet, but there's time.
Well, but what I love is there are people who listen to our podcast who genuinely think he's called Ian.
Yeah.
Yeah, who was it the other day that was like, they call you Ian? I didn't want to stop them. I think it might have been Soph.
Yeah, it was Soph.
But
yeah,
so funny.
That sounds right.
It's gotten even that bad that I think it was one of you guys emailed somebody and the name was Ian in the email, and I was like, why are these guys sending hugely long emails to me?
Deary me. Anyway, let's introduce my panel, even though they've now all spoken. Evening, the man who costs a ridiculous fee. Mike, how you doing, mate? Are you doing well? Are you good?
I'm doing well. I'm thankful that this kit, which arrived last night after my son finally got me to break my 2-year spell of not getting names on the back of the shirts. I was very nervous that I was going to be the downfall of this club. At the end of the day, it's just thankful, and I'm very happy that he's going to be okay. I'm sure we'll be talking about that. But Tom, always nice to be on with you. Thank you for having me on.
No problem. I was just pointing out Kieran, if he didn't know, I think there is a reason behind Mike wearing it the wrong way around. I don't think you've ever worn a shirt without some form of word on, to be fair.
I've been told that too many people get aroused by seeing my neck, so I had to order a shirt that's necklace. And
so we're gradually growing the beard down to cover as much as possible.
Yeah, this is the only shirt that would allow just the face to come through. So the money maker.
Yeah. And your partner in crime, Andy. It's been a while, mate, but good to have you on. Parler Ozil forever. It's good to have you on,
yeah, that's my parlor handle. If you guys want to find me over there.
Very angry.
What is Parler? Is that the site where you can say whatever you like? It's like uncensored Twitter.
It's basically the Twitter for all of the Trumpers now. I think it's been banned over here in the US.
I think Gary Lineker's brother have that.
Probably. Yeah. The guy probably fits in with that crowd of people, but it's all banter. It's at the end of the day, it's banter.
I've never heard that said in such a sad way. I'm making up the DGP quartet. I mean, no, it's not a quartet. I can't.
Not really. Andy doesn't show up.
No, to be fair, it's not even. Yeah,
I've been on this podcast more than I've been on my own.
Yeah, it's. We are finally joined by Owen. Sorry, Owen. Yes, are you doing well?
I'm doing all right, Tom. I'll actually get the conversation back on football. It was it was slightly disappointing last night not to sort of carry on the winning form. But look, at the end of the day, it isn't as if we lost. You know, I think everything is circumstantial, and we'll have to sort of look at everything in a realistic manner. And to go on such a long winning streak seems unrealistic. So it was going to happen eventually, but it was well played by Rowe, which I'm sure we'll dabble into now within the next sort of hour.
Yeah, we will. Just before we kick off, we, as I said earlier, did the Let's Talk Arsenal show, and it was the first time we're kicking off our week with our first prize as our sponsor, Football Prizes, and you can this week win a signed Patrick Vieira shirt. So if you would like to win a Patrick Vieira shirt, click the link in the description and enter the prize. Members, you can get a free ticket at random. So if you would like to get the chance of winning one of our free tickets, then go into the Discord server and yeah, put your number down and you might get a chance for a free ticket. So if you want to just enter the raffle, you can by going in the link and buying a ticket. So enjoy and good luck. Anyway, let's crack on. Owen, I'll start with you first for a more footballistic take on things. What was your reaction to the result? Because I've named the show The Mood Change very quick. How quickly the mood changes. I'm worried what Mike's doing without his camera on.
that was impressively fast.
He pulled something in that mode. Like he's going to complain later his back hurts.
He definitely
That was the fastest I've moved since my bar mitzvah.
So obviously, as I said, I've named the show How Quickly the Mood Changes because the reaction was just a complete meltdown after a 0-0 draw. Still unbeaten after our last 5 games, of which we've won 4. What was your kind of take of the reaction and your thoughts of the game, of course?
Probably a word to sum it all up is frustrating. I would say. I think even when the lineup came out, I had sort of initial worries of 2 right-footed players playing on the left side of the back 4. I think that Ainsley Maitland-Niles, which I'm sure you'll touch on later, was always up against it because he was always going to be compared to the sort of influence of Kieran Tierney, which I don't think anybody in our squad in any position has the ability to be more influential than him. I was sort of when the team sheet got released, we didn't know anything about the injuries. I was quite frustrated to see Pablo Mari and Kieran Tierney not in the lineup. But look, at the end of the day, if you're not fit, you're not fit, and I'd rather them err on the side of caution than pushing anybody in and sustaining long-term injuries. But something that I sort of thought the game was, or we were in the game rather, was we were just very blunt, whereas in the weeks prior, we were really fluent and slick in breaking down teams. But to be honest with you, as I said, praise to Roy Hodgson because his tactics worked perfect within that game. I think he really nullified Bukayo Saka and Emile Smith-Rowe. He identified them as the main threats and really nullified them. I think Aubameyang had another meh sort of game as well. But look, at the end of the day, it's just that's football. That's what happens. It's a game of tactics, and unfortunately, we were on the losing end of that tactical battle.
It was very tactical. It was something that was kind of word I was trying to avoid using on yesterday's reaction. To give a lot of credit to Crystal Palace, but it was exceptionally tactical from them, and they played it very well. And they nearly punished us with the counter attacks that they had. We defended very well. I want to come on to individual performances in a bit, but I want to stick with the team selection, Andy, because we had Gabriel and Partey on the bench, and this is kind of something that I'm an advocate of saying every single time someone is on the bench, and I go, if they're fit enough for the bench, they surely have to be fit enough to start, because if someone gets injured in the first 5 minutes, which has happened, I understand the idea of putting someone on the bench to give them time at the end of a game, which is the devil's advocate view. But Gabriel, the centre-back who didn't play, we play in a system where we want a left-footed centre-back. And I don't think David Luiz was that horrifically bad, especially not defensively. His passing was a bit off, I thought. But Gabriel on that left-hand side, when you're playing with Maitland-Niles there as well, is also right-footed. It's such a one-dimensional back four, all being right-footed, that I thought it made a little bit of... It was nonsensical to play with 2 right-footers on the left-hand side, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. Him more than Partey was kind of like that question mark for me, because I know he had COVID, right? But professional athlete, if he rebounded, he probably rebounded quickly. And so outside of the suspension, there was no real injury there. So you're right. If he's healthy enough to be on the bench, then he should be playing. So that was a confusing one for me. I don't know if maybe maybe language was the barrier. If they were thinking like, okay, Ainsley's going to need a little bit more help, just that call for arms. But again, he's been in England now for a number of months, and football's football, right? It's universal language. If you need someone, you just yell their name.
He knows how to scare Bukayo Saka when he turns around a corner. So.
Yeah. But obviously we're going to see rotation. And as Eoin said, we didn't know of the injuries ahead of time. At the end of the day, I don't know that we played terribly poor. I mean, this was the first match for a while where I kept thinking for 60-70% of it, our entire 11, or excuse me, our 10 outfield players were in their half of the ball. And as you said, Roy got the tactics down almost perfectly, but we haven't seen a match for a very long time where we've been on the front foot for the majority of the match. And there were a couple areas on the pitch where, like that Bellerin who didn't leave the shot for Lacazette, and there were just some things that didn't fall our way. But, at this point, we're a mid-table team. And so for me, we drew another mid-table team, right? And as someone pointed out in the chat, it's a couple runs in a row. We got a point at home with a clean sheet against, which sucks to say, as a mid-table rival. So at the end of the day, I don't see it being that bad of a result.
Okay. I think I liked Martino's comment earlier on saying if someone told us that we were going to pick up 10 points from these 4 games, I would have said do one. We'll be lucky to get 3 from the 4 games.
True.
And yeah, True. Because before the Chelsea game, I didn't know where a goal was coming from. I didn't know where we were going to score, let alone win a game. And just because we draw 0-0, it's like, for me, the reaction just stunk of the arrogant expectation of the fan base. Again, just like we've been for a really crap period at the start of the season where we have not been worse, where players were down in tools. The manager was picking the players that didn't deserve him, didn't deserve players, didn't deserve to play, like Willian, etc., and Xhaka at the time as well, who has obviously now turned a corner. But it's turned around. We've beaten Chelsea. We went to West Brom, which I know is West Brom, but they've drawn against Liverpool in their place. They've given teams a tough game, and we managed to absolutely smash them in a really difficult scenario. And it snowed, exactly, which I mean is a kind of, it gives Kieran Tierney a bit of a Superman boost, to be fair. But it's still the situation that we were handed. And then the Brighton game, we don't win at Brighton. Like, it just doesn't happen. And we managed to pull off a very gritty sort of 1-0 win there. And then we come up against Palace, who have our number whenever we play them. Like, we can't. I've been to Selhurst Park and never seen us win. I've never seen us win at Selhurst Park in all the times I've been there. And I know Mike hasn't either. So it's a house of horrors for us. It is.
And the Emirates against Palace has been a house of horrors. I mean,
we lost there last.
I sent out a tweet earlier in the week because we had all kinds of video and stuff. I mean, the last 4 or 5 games, or 5 out of the last 6 games against Palace have been horrific. And, more than that, when Arsenal are playing well, when everything seems to be falling into place, we shifts all the way over to, it's overcorrection of expectation. And all of a sudden we're playing the Crystal Palaces of the world and the Burnleys of the world and all that, and thinking that, we're just going to stomp on them because we're ahead of them in the table. And that's just, we're not at that phase yet. I mean, Andy says we're a mid-table team. I think we're a little bit better than a mid-table team. We haven't shown it. But
it's just crazy, those words.
We're literally mid-table now, but I mean, at the end of the day, it is about what you do in 4 games. I mean, 10 points in 4 games is 10 points, and we have picked up league spots in the table. Our clean sheet situation is on fire right now. I mean, the defense seems to be well sorted. Leno's playing at a level that Emi Martinez has never even dreamed about before, right, Andy? And
correct.
Look, I fully expected a crash. I thought this was a trap game. We started to show some of those old lack of creativity on the offense. But, I mean, at the end of the day, to stay in 11th place, to get out of it unscathed and to not continue that run against Palace, I'll take it, and we move on to the next one to see whether we've got it in us to rebound.
Oh, and on the show yesterday, I felt like a man standing on a desert island surrounded by Bellerin haters. That's how I felt on the reaction show. And I understand that there was a lot of people who one, have always kind of had a negative view of Bellerin. And there are some that genuinely believe that he wasn't good yesterday. I thought he was good. Like, I thought without him, the clean sheet doesn't happen. He defended brilliantly. That's the best defensive display from him I've seen in an Arsenal shirt. Offensively, there were issues. But I still feel like he could put on that display, and someone accused him of, and I'll use the quote, of woeful, he was described as in yesterday's game. What is it kind of about the mindset of the fans, I suppose, about specific players like Bellerin that maybe skews the opinion?
I think if I'm putting myself into the shoes of somebody who holds that view, is that somebody like a Hector Bellerin, you can sort of identify those individuals as everything that is wrong with the culture of the club. You know, people that would question mentality. I think, or if you remember the quotes regarding his view on Alexis Sanchez, about his mentality to win being too strong. So I think if you see these people, they've got a preset agenda. And I think if you look at football, if you look at any game, like let's say I'm sure you'll touch on him in more detail later, but Granit Xhaka I thought was fantastic yesterday, but somebody with an agenda against Granit Xhaka could turn around and say he was awful. Look at these passes that he put astray. And I think it's the same. I think it's the same thing with Hector Bellerin. Is that you can look at his creative attack and play and compare it to Kieran Tierney's, but is he capable of doing those things? I agree with you. I think defensively yesterday he was outstanding, but I think he did leave a lot to be desired in terms of going forward. Now, I might have a soft view on Bellerin because I'm literally only after watching his doco series on YouTube about his recovery from the injury, and I've taken a lot more of a liking to him as a person since watching that. But I think it was in the TGT WhatsApp group that when we were talking, and I was saying something that I find very frustrating with Hector Bellerin is for a player who developed as a winger, he's not very good in those 1-2 situations. And I know this might sound stupid, but he's a decent one, but he's a really bad 2. So, for example, if a player is trying to play, you know, a one-touch triangle sequence with him, the weight of his passes and the accuracy of his passes in those small spaces can really lack at times. And I think he wastes a lot of opportunities. Also, I think probably the reason people sort of have been taking aim at Hector Bellerin as well is because I think on 2 occasions he sort of got involved when he didn't need to in probably the 2 best opportunities of the game. So, but look, I don't hold him responsible for that. That's up to Lacazette to maybe shout and let him know that he's there, and which I didn't hear or see coming from Lacazette. So I don't know. Look, at the end of the day, there's a lot of sort of perceived agendas against Hector Bellerin, and I think regardless of what he does, he could go out and play an absolute stormer, but people's minds won't change and people won't take a liking to him. So yeah, I don't know. I agree with you. Very, very good defensively, but left a bit to be desired going forward.
Yeah,
I also wonder too. Sorry, just to jump in. I feel like the way Arsenal is right now, from like social media perspective and just our fandom as a whole, it feels like there needs to be someone to blame after every match that we don't play well in. Right? There always has to be someone on the pitch, whether it's Aubameyang, Bellerin, like there just always needs to be that scapegoat, and at the end of the day, that's who we are now as a fan base, and that's not going to change for quite some time. And I just wonder if Bellerin gets a lot of stick. And I was playing Football Manager last night, and a team came in for a bid on him, and I just realized like he's only 25, 26 years old. I mean, he's so young still. And yeah, someone put in the comments, and it's rightly so, like he has lost a step with that injury. However,
that was Wayne.
Yeah. Oh, was it?
Yeah, that's right. Vintage.
End of the day, we don't have any better option, and I thought he played, like you said, Tom. Yesterday was one of his best defensive performances in a very long time.
Yeah, and I understand what Wayne's saying there, but even with like what you're saying, Wayne, when you say defensively he's done what is expected, that really frustrates me as like a term, because. So if he doesn't achieve well going the other way, we criticise. But if he does well, he's done as expected. Like there's no kind of praise ever. Like he's done his job. Well done. congrats. Like that's the level that we go to, and that's what I find so frustrating sometimes.
Well, you want people who have a job to do their job. I mean,
go on, devil's advocate, play it. Go on.
You do. No, I mean, I was actually gonna compliment somebody who I want out of the club. I still want out of the club, but you can't. I mean, unless you are so wrapped up in the agenda, it's hard not to recognize how good Granit Xhaka was yesterday. And defensively, in my mind, I mean, I can't remember how many times I saw him just time his lunges perfectly. I was like, if he was Mustafi, these would have been red cards, and because the lunges would have been timed, or if he were normal Xhaka. But I mean, I think he, so as not to seem too agenda-ridden or preconceived, I think he had one of his best games in an Arsenal shirt yesterday. At least in the last few months, and at the end of the day, he was there when it mattered to make some of those last-ditch tackles and keep us from having one-on-ones against Leno. So
yeah, see, just while we're heaping the praise on Granit Xhaka,
it was one game though, and I didn't hear what he had to say after the game. So at the end of the day, he's still going to be a dick. But
yeah.
He's not a nice guy. I don't think that. Go on, Owen.
But with I think the problem lies. What I think the problem was yesterday, and I heard what you said about you can't blame defenders when we didn't score. But something that I did see throughout that game is that I don't think that David Luiz and Granit Xhaka can play in the same team together. I think that they retain the ball for too long, take one too many touches, sort of hold it up. And although Granit Xhaka was very good yesterday, he was guilty of that at times. I would say that David Luiz was more so. And people say, yeah, but if they're holding on, the pass out, it's up to the attackers to create that sort of zip in the attack. But you're giving the opposition time to set a lot of the time, and movements slow down and marking becomes so much easier. When I think when we see Emile Smith-Rowe playing passes, it's often first touch in a small space and bang, away he goes. And I just don't think that either Granit Xhaka or David Luiz possess the ability. I think that they need too much time on the ball, and I think that playing them both together, the sides suffer in an attacking sense when they're both on the pitch.
I agree with you in this. I think that what I would say is that in the defence of that side is that Xhaka lost the ball a couple of times because he brought it forwards and there was no one. There was absolutely no one making the space, no one for him to pass to. And I know that the retort to that would be, well, go backwards. But then he gets criticised for going backwards all the time. And
I put it in the TGG chat yesterday, Tom, that the mistakes that he made because he was trying to drive the play forward, and either players weren't making runs and or the vision of what he was seeing, and they just weren't on the same page. So at the end of the day, if you're going to look at a player that you want to drive forward, right? We always say Xhaka plays better when there's a defensive midfielder around him. If you're asking him to drive forward, then the rest of the team need to be in sync with that. And we can't argue if one or two of his passes get misplaced. We were lucky yesterday because some of those did result in Palace counterattacks. But again, that means other people are out of position, right? And so I don't know. At the end of the day, he played well, and we gotta, you gotta praise him. But there were, Xhaka moments where you're like, why are you sliding in the box again? Stop doing that. It
was a great tackle though when he did.
Yeah, the one we're all thinking about would normally have ended up as a penalty, but it just, he couldn't have timed that better. And it just goes
9 times out of 10 though, he gets a red card for that.
Yeah, but look, at the end of the day, it's like you get it right and it looks brilliant, but if you don't, you're a scapegoat for for 3 weeks. So it's fine margins. But yesterday's performance, I'll take.
Let's talk about Aubameyang because he's kind of the other guy. I know we're talking about scapegoats in games, but if there is kind of a player that I look at right now that just is a complete shadow of the player that he was last season, it is him. The very obvious narrative from social media has been that he's signed the new contract and since then has not been the same player. I guess my question, Andy, is do you think there is a correlation between the two, or is it just the whole team is not in a great place, the system's not working for him, or is there any? Do you think there's any credence in the contract theory behind it? Because it's the very the Özil thing, the Willian thing, his last contract moving to us. It's not like there aren't other examples where we've seen it before.
Yeah, it's easy to point to that. I don't personally. I don't see it for Aubameyang. I think he's such a professional, and he signed that contract on the back of like wanting to become a club legend because we knew that he could probably at a pick of any club in the world, right? I think it's just bad. I think tactics haven't worked out. I think his position being out on left sometimes hasn't worked out. For me, yesterday, I was a little pissed off that he stayed on the pitch and Lacazette got subbed off because there were moments where Lacazette tracked back and broke up play and then drove forward. And I was thinking he's more integral right now to how we're playing. Maybe it just came down to the tactic side of throwing in Ketia on.
I think it's down to Arteta. I feel like he can't sub him. I feel like
I think it's like, you put the captain's armband on him. I literally thought during the match, like, just because he's wearing a captain's armband doesn't mean he needs to play 90 minutes. So at the end of the day, it is Arteta's problem, and they need to figure that out. But it's hard to say that with him, it's the money thing, right? I don't see that being the issue. I just think it's a drought. I think he's on a drought.
Mike, I feel like you were going to say something.
No, it was a sigh of agreement with Andy in the sense that it was the first thing we've ever agreed on. But like, he's not Ozil, and he loves the game. I firmly believe that being more rich than he was before doesn't make him love the game any less. It is bad timing. He's lost his form. The whole team around him has lost his form. We keep thinking these one-off goals are going to be the beginning of, just like a pinball effect of goals going in for him. But, we're not at that point yet. So, I don't think he's finished. I saw Omar in the chat saying he's finished. I think it's real easy to say he's finished and then just kind of be quiet when he comes back and ends the season with 13 or 14 goals in all competitions, which is a down year for him, but it's one that you would probably take at this point.
I know age is a factor here, but I read and maybe it changed since I read it, but Aguero hasn't scored a Premier League goal yet.
Yeah,
like these things happen, right? But no, he has been injured, but these things happen for strikers, and we've always had strikers that have never gone on long droughts. But Aubameyang being pushed out on the left, does that really help his style of play? No, it's a tactic thing, right?
But I think with Aubameyang the case is that he doesn't possess the natural abilities to be an effective left winger in this system, but he also doesn't possess the abilities to be the type of striker that we need in this system. So I think the case is now that in hindsight to offer such a massive contract to a player like Aubameyang when he doesn't suit the system that Mikel Arteta wants to implement, that's concerning, because I think that regardless of how good of a player I think he is or how much I like him as a player, I think that we're on the brink of possibly having another Mesut Ozil situation here, just as we seem to be reaching the sort of dawning of that phase of Ozil. We have potentially got another case of that on our hands.
I just see him as more of a competitor. I mean, I don't want this to become about Ozil. It's about Abba, but I just don't see him as being that kind. I think he wants to lead through example. I don't know that he's the best pick for a captain, especially with the emergence of Tierney at this point. But I don't see that. I think he's in a slump. I think he can easily get out of it. I mean, even at 31, 32, is he 32? I mean, at the end of the day, he's one of the greatest strikers in the world at this point. The greatest pure goal scorers, I should say, and he'll find form. I have no doubt he'll find form. That said, I don't think he also needs to play 90 minutes every single game and not be subject to be subbed out at the end of the day if things aren't going well.
But someone put in the chat, like, Aguero, he might not be scoring goals, but he does other things on the pitch. I'm fine if Aubameyang is making the money and not scoring goals, but he is setting up. He's pulling players away so Lacazette gets open and there are other players get forward and provide opportunities, or he grabs an assist. But for me, at the end of the day, he shouldn't be playing 90 minutes. And he might be the type of player where if you gave him a stretch on the bench, like we did with Lacazette, his turn, he rebounds from that with a different player. Everyone thought the goals that he scored recently were going to be that big, like, oh, he's back, but it's just not how it's working right now. And
That's not the type of player he is, though, I don't think. Because at the end of the day, he's a poacher. A poacher, I understand confidence affects composure and clinicalness in the final third, and I get that. But Aubameyang, for me, has never really been a player that it has like a long-running string of missing huge chances like Lacazette. What's so funny? What's going on? Why are we laughing so much? Are you texting each other? You're texting each other, right?
It's Ali's bright red face. He's gone again. He's gone again.
It's my camera. I was having a coughing fit, so I was like, I gotta mute myself and turn my camera.
It just is building up gradually in your face. It's waiting to explode. Oh dear. Anyway, yeah, as I say, like I don't look at Aubameyang as a confidence player because he's a poacher and he has those chances. Confidence players are the guys that make stuff happen and rely on them creating chances not only for themselves but for other people. And that's why you look at like Pepe and you say Pepe is more of a confidence player and Theo Walcott was more of a confidence player, and these guys were needing to be on top of their form to make stuff happen in games because they need to do things on the ball. Whereas Aubameyang is just the guy that puts the chances away when the ball comes to him. So, and I suppose that a lot of people in the chat box have highlighted that he's been making runs, trying to make those runs in behind. No one's finding him. But it's something that we aren't doing in general, not just with Aubameyang, but Lacazette makes a lot of runs that no one ever finds.
The best thing for Aubameyang is the emergence of Smith Rowe, because if he can, if he can stay healthy, it just changes everything about the angles and the approach and the through balls and all of that. And with a guy like that, and he obviously would rather have a creative person behind him. It's not going to be Ozil. Mel Smith Rowe will look to send Aubameyang on runs, and they've not played together that much. So at the end of the day, their timing is going to be working together. He will start getting the goals, and that. Omar or whoever in the chat said that that's where he's going to end up getting the 14 goals from.
There were moments yesterday in the match where Aubameyang was either taking on a Palace defender or could have done what he's done before, where he chips it around him and makes that long curved run, and he just didn't do that. He held up play, and there was just something in him that like stopped him from trying to out sprint. And I was just thinking, like, is he hurt? Is he lost his step? Like, at the end of the day, he just looks like a different player this season than what we're used to. And I don't think it's contract based, Tom. Back to your original question. I really don't. I think it's just
on the Emile Smith Rowe thing there, just as you were saying, that the Emile Smith Rowe, the emergence of him is something that could benefit Aubameyang. Something I'm not sure whether the rest of you sort of noticed this here yesterday, but something that happens on a regular sort of basis with those number 10 central attack and midfield players. I know he's like a tomato, man. He's so big. But it's with those players.
Welcome to dermatology today.
I was blood pressure up before I came on, but it's Owen. He makes my loins get nice and toasty.
Jesus Christ.
Anyway, Emile Smith Rowe, something I was really impressed with is something that a lot of central attacking midfielders do when they aren't getting much joy in the game, when they're not getting on the ball as much as they'd like, is that they often drop deep into the sort of centre of midfield. But something I was really impressed with Emile Smith Rowe was the maturity in his game, the maturity to say, look, I know that I'm not as involved as I'd like to be, but I'm still just going to occupy that space behind the striker, and I'm not really going to veer too far away from that space, because an opportunity will come eventually, and then I'll make the most of it. And look, unfortunately, the opportunity never came, but I thought it was really sort of telling of how much maturity the player has within his game. But look, at the end of the day, I still think, which I think you'll probably ask us later on, is I still think that he needs a bit of support and help in that position.
Yeah, Emile Smith Rowe in general, like I thought of the 5 games, the 5 games that he's played, this was his worst one. Like this was the one where he was the least influential on the game. When he got to the byline, his cutbacks were either not as accurate or didn't have enough power on them to reach the target that he was aiming for. I thought it was maybe a bit of a tired performance for him from playing so much for us recently, and that again. This whole question, it's something that I bring up because me and Drew debate on this quite a lot and have done publicly on Twitter as well, is that I can't get the mindset of not bringing in a player for that position. And when I say a player, I mean someone who's arguably even better than him. and better than Emile Smith-Rowe, because Emile Smith-Rowe has played 5 games from the start, and sub appearances in the Premier League, and he's looked great, fantastic. But there's no guarantees that goes on. There's no guarantees that will carry on. There's no guarantees that he will remain fit the entire time. There's no guarantees he won't get the Rona. Like, I find it very naive, and I mean that in the kindest way, to not want to bring in a Buendia, not want to bring in a good player to play in instead of Smith-Rowe, or rotate Smith-Rowe, because I thought he was tired. I thought it was a really tired display, and we don't have anyone else that can go there. He's going to Fenerbahce, so we don't have anyone else. And I'm not saying he would have been the guy to do the job, but he was the only natural number 10 that we had besides Smith-Rowe. And Willock's not that. And
he's still learning. He's so young, and this is like, we're putting all of our hopes on him. And if he goes on a 2 or 3 game drought and he has those type of performances, our fan base are going to be all over him. Like, I've got Roman in the background. I'm just watching, is it Pellegrini play? Yeah. And I'm just like, he would instantly make our team a world.
You can't, it's a case of you can't place all your eggs in one basket in a position that's so influential to how the system works. You can't, like you said, Tom, how often do injuries occur? Rona, is flying about at the minute, dips in form. As I say, you can't place all your hope on a relatively unproven, not even relatively, an unproven player in such a crucial position within the system.
So what you're saying?
End of day, Rona's going to crush you.
You're saying, yeah. At the end of the day, we're bringing in Christian Eriksen at this point. Is what you're telling me.
I don't think so.
I don't see Brandt. I mean, look, I don't know that
Brandt's not happening. No,
and
I don't think we're bringing. I'm not saying I don't think we're bringing in anyone. I don't think anyone's.
But you think it's a mistake at the end of the day not to bring anyone?
I don't. Well, not necessarily this window. I think it's a mistake if we were to never bring anyone in that position. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying it has to be this window. I think it could be, but the problem is the options that are available are either too expensive for this window or are just not the right players to sign. And you shouldn't sign a player for the sake of signing a player. Just because you have a need in that position doesn't mean you go and sign Plan E because Plans A, B, C, and D were not available in January. You shouldn't waste that money. And if we're being very honest, this season in general was a bit of a write-off at this point. Like, we're hoping that we turn the league form. We're hoping that maybe something happens in the Europa League. The Europa League I look at as should be the priority this season, because I don't see the league really benefiting us. There's too many teams better than us and more consistent than us, and there's too many teams above us all on very much similar points for us to really kind of get in there unless we go on a mad run. But I mean, you look at the fan base when we drop 2 points out of 5 games and the reaction to that, I don't see Arsenal going on a winning run and winning the rest of the games. So the summer coming up is
Asensio available?
It could be. It's not even a joke at this stage. He genuinely could be available.
You could do worse than Asensio at the end of the day.
You could, but he's more of a wide player now instead of like that number 10. He has played number 10, but I think
someone put Isco in the chat, and today he could be decent.
No, thank you. And the thing is with Isco, the only thing that would make sense of Isco is a 6-month loan from now. But we spoke to Alvaro Romeo on the show a couple of weeks ago, and his words on Isco are very much is like, if you sign Isco, you sign him in a summer window and you give him a pre-season. If you want Isco, who's barely been playing at Real Madrid for 2 years, to come in and have an impact in the last 6 months of your season, you're praying. Like, it's not going to happen.
It's a Dennis Suarez type of deal.
Yeah, it is exactly that. It's a dressed up Dennis Suarez deal to go and get Isco. And the same thing with Christian Eriksen.
Whatever happened to the Coutinho rumors?
He's injured. He's injured for a serious amount of time. So and he's liked by Koeman as well.
There's got to be somebody. Because Tom wrote an article recently about some Bulgarian fetus that he discovered, and I think it's never too soon to go. I mean, we've seen what our young guns can do. Why not bring in a fetus at this point? If he's got talent, it doesn't matter whether he's actually been born yet or not. At the end of the day,
49 minutes and 10 seconds. You were quite good. No, but I think with the January transfer window, I think the writing's on the wall ever since that 120 million loan from the Bank of England. Go on ahead, Tom. You were gonna.
Sorry, no. You can carry on a second. I just want to address this now because it's annoying the hell out of me whenever anyone tweets me this. You can't loan 2 players from the same club in England. You can loan 2 players from Real Madrid, even though we got Ceballos. Read the Premier League rules. It's so but what people have done is they've cropped the bullet points and they've missed off the top section of text where it literally says other English clubs. Like, it's so frustrating because it's
That's the world we live in now, Tom. People read the headline and then the subject matter.
That's why I make my headlines so good.
Listen, I want Smith Rowe to play really well, and I want us to say that we have our number 10 and be able to just know that he's our guy. But at the end of the day, you need competition. It has to be had. It makes players better. Bringing in Partey has turned a lot of heads in our central midfield, right? And then there are going to be a couple players who at the end of the day get shipped off because of him. But this is a player outside of left back and goalkeeper. Like, we need to strengthen these areas. And at the end of the day, if we don't do it, we're a worse club.
Yeah, it just frustrates. I mean, we've talked about kind of the recruitment of the club anyway on a long time, and I think there are positive signs happening. What's so funny now, Eoin? Come on, tell me what's so funny.
Something's happening in Northern Ireland because dude's got the giggles today.
He just keeps giggling.
Look at him. What is happening? Tom, did you know, the last couple pods, I haven't listened to the last week's pod, so I don't know why I've been missing so many. Someone just said, it looks like I got over my divorce pretty quick. There's got to be what these guys told people.
What? I didn't see that.
Yeah, someone put it a while ago, but I had the pod.
I missed this.
I've just been really busy with work, but I put the pod in the background. But I've been messaging, and Eoin breaks literally I'm just how quickly can I get them to giggle or laugh? And Owen's two messages and he's gone.
This making me feel so subconsciously.
I feel like someone could just say fart.
I don't know how I got to this position because I went from writing with you, podcasting with you, Tom, professionalism, and now I have to deal with this shit on not even a weekly basis, a daily basis. My mum's constantly insulted. I don't know where
you chose to do this. This is all you.
At the end of the day, I think you're a much more well-rounded person now at this point. And
yeah.
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 Me and Eoin are doing our hardest, okay? We're trying.
We're trying, man. Coach to 5K.
Coach to 5K, yeah.
5K, I love
That's what we're doing. That's what I'm doing anyway.
I was in the conversation. Are you on Strava yet?
No, I haven't downloaded it yet. I need to download Strava. I'm going to download it. I will.
Do that by the end of the day. Do that.
Yes, I will. I will get it downloaded. Okay. As people saw on Twitter, I tweeted out the 5K that I did. That was on Wednesday. I plan to do another run today. I still can't run. My legs are dead. They're gone.
I saw your pace on Instagram, and I was thinking when you wrote I just started running, I was thinking that would be my pace if I was in really good shape.
That's what even G said. She was like, "That's really good pace," and I was like, "I walked for 2K."
Andy, you do realize at the end of the day, the guy's still 24.
But he's got we have as weak a knees as each other, so I guess at the end of the day, we even each other out.
Yeah.
Oh dear me. Anyway, we are now into the last section of the show. You'll be happy to hear as we approach the. Did you just choke?
There's some comments asking if I'm under the influence of any narcotics. No.
Oh, God, no, he's not. This is just what he's like now after a couple of months with these two. If you've got a question for the boys at your own risk, please do throw them into the chat box. We had a question earlier on from Ian R, who asked, do you see anyone coming in?
Are we sure that's how his name is pronounced?
Yes. So just no. Oh, God, yeah, morons. I'm going to ask you all this for a brief answer. You can go for a yes or no if you like, but anything as you like. Mike, we'll start with you. Do you see anyone coming in January? You try to look into the distance. Can you see someone?
There's rumors. There's obviously a desire from the supporters. There's going to be more people leaving, I hope. But at the end of the day, I don't see anybody being brought in. Not a single person. And at the end of the day, I won't be that upset about that either, because it's I think we already have the players to get us through the rest of the season. We needed to get, at the end of the day, we need to get the locker room straight, the mentality straight, and I think we can do that with a few more outs.
I don't know what Owen's doing. Yeah, you go, Abby, because
I'll jump in. I
Sorry,
think Tom,
something was stuck
in Andy, make this a very quick answer. Okay?
Stuck in my eye.
Dude.
That's the worst excuse I've ever heard. Something stuck in my eye. Yes. I'm going to turn off the video.
Andy, short answer. We've taken enough time already. It's got to be like 2 words.
At the end of the day, I think we will sign someone. But to Tom's point, I think we're not gonna settle for the E, right? We're gonna go for the A, B's, or C's. And at the end of the day, I'm hoping that's the case because we need someone. Dude, Owen's ruined this. This is on Owen and only him.
It's hit. This is the thing. I thought it was going to be you two, and this is Owen.
No, at the end of the day, it's always Owen. At the end of the day, it's always Owen.
Boys, it's broken. The gig's up. Stop.
It's you.
God. Right, let's go into the chat box because I'm not even asking Owen that question because
No, I don't. I think the 120 million loan just tells us that we're definitely not getting anybody in January.
Yeah, well, it's more to do, I think, with redundancies and stuff like that. But I don't, who knows? Mike, check perk, just making sure I'm pronouncing that correctly. Says our players get more injuries than most clubs in Europe. WTF is going on with our staff, or just bad luck? Surely not a coincidence, right?
It doesn't seem like a coincidence. I mean, I look at every day. I'm waiting to get to see another injury come in. At the end of the day, I look at my my Twitter, and it's Tierney this day. It's Mari this day. So, we've gone through physicists. We've hired people from other physicists. What are they called? Physios.
Physicists.
We've got We've got that. Who's that dude? Neil deGrasse Tyson. We've got him in.
We've got the guys that work out when your knee actually breaks on the angle.
Yeah. So they're like the players coming to their office like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But
I can tell you how your terminal velocity of your jump.
I can tell you
all I know is
on your bruise is not good.
All I know is it is a bit odd. I don't like how often it happens. At the end of the day, we got to figure it out because we're not going to have any players left by the end of the year. Or the
let me ask. Yeah. Can I ask Owen? Are you going to go see a physicist for your eye if it continues to hurt?
Can we stop this? Say you're going to ruin this podcast, please. Let's just.
It's gone, mate. It's already gone. We've got about 15 dislikes.
No.
I know.
No. Crush that like button.
I'm ready for a question.
Yeah, hey guys.
Divion,
comes up this pod.
Divion says, how about Pepe, Owen, as a second striker in a counter-attacking 4-4-2? And I'm going to add on to that saying, we keep asking, like, how do we fit Pepe in? Do we try to fit Pepe in at this point?
No, I think I said a while ago, I think Mikel Arteta was at a point where he was either going to have to change the system to suit a player or disregard a player, essentially. I'm a big believer in not trying to fit sort of square pegs into round holes, not trying to put people out of position into a different position just for the sake of trying to fit them in. I think if you were to play a 4-4-2, Lacazette and Aubameyang are probably your best pairing that you can pick there. In terms of Nicolas Pepe, look, I just don't think that it's a fit for him stylistically. If we look at like Timo Werner, Kai Havertz at Chelsea, Radamel Falcao at Chelsea and United, this league's completely different to a lot of leagues in the world, and which is why we see so many players struggle. So I think it's coming to the time that we're just going to have to cut our losses and try and move Pepe on when we can.
Jamie Fitzgray, thank you for the donation. He says Ryan Giggles, which I think is a nickname for Owen at this point in time. Owen Giggles. The season, lads. Oh, dearie me. Balaji says, what do you think of the new garlic that has just been appointed at our club, Andy, who has positioned himself into the shadiest part of the room so we can't see his red face?
You know what? There was a lot of like, hey, he's coming from West Brom. Is that who we should be taking? Like, at the end of the day, if he's the right man for the job, he's being vetted out by our senior staff. Hopefully it is, right? There's a lot more that comes to it with What type of relationships does he have, or what clubs does he come from? Does he know how to negotiate deals? Does he know how to work very closely with the rest of the players around him, right? With the Arteta, Edu. So at the end of the day, if our board think it's the right pick, then let's go ahead. I know a lot of people went out, when it came to contract negotiations and what have yous. So yeah, like I'm okay with it. At the end of the day, if he goes and gets us Jack Grealish, perfect. Let's do it.
I'm trying to read Danny's question.
There we go.
What is that?
Anyone who tells you that they know how a particular executive from another club is going to impact the club at the end of the day, it's just stupid, because it's more about the business side than anything else. I mean, who cares that it came from West Brom? That's not. I'll tell you what. The fact that he was the executive at West Brom, at the end of the day, that is not the reason that they're a flip-flop team between the top two divisions.
Raul came from Barcelona, and at the end of the day, he embezzled a ton of money from us. So there you go.
I mean, you never know what to expect until the end of the day.
Allegedly. Alleged. We say allegedly.
Do I have to switch into the gerbil in the chat room and lay
if you
some
want to do the
knowledge on
gerbil, you can. But I'm just saying, for the benefit of my show, I'm going to say allegedly.
I see what you're saying.
Raymond Plange sounds like that would be a ploy, doesn't it? I'm being so careful with the names.
It's the way you read it, and then quickly wait a second.
I'm
sorry, Raymond, if that is in fact your name. I'm really sorry. More so for you.
David Ziegler, if that is in fact your name, we're gonna
Do you guys think that as we are now statistically still in the race for top four, that should now be our priority? Owen, I think we're at.
Yeah, no, I think we're going to struggle in every competition. Realistically, I think that our squad depth for quality isn't great. So yeah, I don't know. I just don't see us making that. I think we'll actually struggle to make them European places, because our form has been so patchy. And if you look at the season as a whole, we're still way below par of where we expected to be. But even for you, Tom, when we were talking about January there, I think just before the window started, you said it's about the Crystal Palace game. If we hadn't had any players come in, you would be questioning Edu. I know that outs maybe slightly changed your mind, but we're yet to really see any kind of sort of mass exodus. But I don't know. What do you think? Because for me, the only way we can achieve any of our goals is, I think, by maybe the owners dipping their hands in their pockets in January.
There's a couple of things that have made me kind of shift the goalposts a bit. One has obviously been the emergence of Emile Smith-Rowe. When I said that about, I basically, to clarify what I said that I would be asking serious questions of Edu should no players be brought in by the game yesterday, because we had, and that was before we went on this winning run. That was before Chelsea. But the emergence of Smith-Rowe, the return of Martinelli, that changed things. And when we started to move on, I did pronounce it correctly. Lovely stuff. In terms of the players that we've started to move on, and the fact we could actually move a player that I never thought we had any chance of moving on at all in Ozil, that's kind of changed. I've appreciated that side of things. Getting Saliba his loan, getting 100 grand off the wage bill with Kolasinac, I think is a good move as well. And we have got that off. We're not subsidising any of his wages. That is a whole wage bill off of our racket at the moment. So that's really good. So that's changed.
Question, Tom?
Yeah, go on, Andy.
Sorry to interrupt, but it might come to your point. So, if our board and our contract negotiations team look at and say, okay, we have our A, right? Let's say it's Jack Grealish, for example. But then Emile Smith-Rowe steps up and we see just a completely different player. Does that then change them to say, hey, let's pause for a week or two and see how well he develops? And then maybe we go to our plan B, right? Emile Smith-Rowe is our starting 11, and now plan B is the backup. Whereas before, maybe we were looking for someone above Emile Smith-Rowe, and they were thinking, well, financially, it makes sense for us at the end of the day to go with the lesser of the two options, because we're giving this youth Hale End boy the chance to sorry to interrupt, but I'm just wondering if that's kind of why we've paused, because we all knew going into January where we were seeing the gaps. And if you do look at the table, yesterday, if we had won, we're 3 points off of Tottenham, granted with the game in hand, but we're very close. And I think it's a 3-horse race for the title. But at the end of the day, we're still in the mix for top 4. 1 or 2 additions, and that might turn into, that might be a realistic goal. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think that, like, when you look, Mike's getting very angry, and I can't hear what he's saying. You're muted.
I think you can't pour all your energy and resources into a Europa League run because it's a bit of luck of the draw there. There are some teams like Milan and other Premier League teams that are in there. So if you still have Milan, if you have a chance at top 4, and if the consolation prize for not quite getting there is once again you're in 5th or 6th, and you still push forward in the Europa League, at the end of the day, that's all you can ask for. I mean, but no, we shouldn't start treating the Premier League like it's the lesser of the FA Cup and the Europa League, because it is the competition that matters the most at the end of the day.
Yeah, of course it is. All I think is I think that a lot of fans are kind of sleeping on the Europa League right now as like a route into the Champions League, because we are arguably quite a good cup team, and we've shown that in the FA Cup and stuff like that. And when it comes down to like these cup finals and every cup match being a cup final in itself, we're not bad at those. So that I think it's a really good chance. We've gone nearly there when we got to the final with Chelsea, and unfortunately we had a terrible second half in that final. But hopefully, if we beat Benfica, I don't mind that we've drawn Benfica, because if anything, it hopefully wakes us up in the round of 32. And we're playing a good team. It's like Spurs, who have got Wolfsberger, and you've got United have got Real Sociedad, who are also a decent side. But I was listening to a couple of United fans talk about that and say that they're going to quite rest a few players for that. I'm thinking that Real Sociedad are no mugs, and those teams could take those. I don't expect Mourinho really to take their game lightly, because I think he will target the Europa League for sure. But I feel like those games can really harm you sometimes and lead you into these full sense of security. So I'm looking forward to getting back into the Europa League. I genuinely am. Peter Renner asks, Andy, if reports are true, do you think the club is making a mistake by keeping hold of Eddie, meaning Balogun leaves on a free, seeing how short of funds the club is? Could have used the money on other players.
I don't know that it's a player versus player thing, right? I mean, at the end of the day, Balogun's contract's up and Eddie's isn't. So Balogun can shop around, and if Arsenal come to him with a specific number, his agent can then go shop that elsewhere, right? So the good negotiations are in Balogun's favor at this point. So I don't see it being one or the other. And I also don't see that freeing up Eddie's wages would really have added more value to Balogun. We can't go in and offer the player 50,000. That would just be ridiculous, right? That's what Guendouzi wanted, and look how that turned out for us as a club. We need to do better. Should his contract have been put down? That's not on Edu and Arteta. That should have been looked at 2 years ago. If the teams in place 2 years ago thought he was a talent for us in the future, that should have been taken a long time ago. So I think at the end of the day, it's not on the current regime. They could do as much as they can, but Balogun owns all the power here, because his agent can take whatever numbers we have, and at the end of the day, shift it to a Roma or somewhere else and go, here's what Arsenal are offering, better it. And if that's just it's a shame.
It is a shame. I've kind of covered the Balogun thing in such detail now, and I think a lot of fans have, as I've said, have got quite high PTSD rates based upon Marlon and Jeff and Gnabry and all these players, but they never remember the players that we let go and that never went on to do anything.
Balogun's different, though. At the end of the day, that guy would have been for us the next legend. You don't know. And if not, then it's gonna be Muller.
Yeah, but
Tyrese Jones.
Yeah. Well, there's good signs, but there was good signs in other players that have left and gone off to do it. I think it's been massively overhyped, and he might go on to do great things. And frankly, I hope he does, because I do hope any player that leaves our academy goes on to do.
Is he going to go on and be the next Gnabry? Probably not, right? That was a one-off, and a lot of different people missed that. But as much as it pains us to say, well, we're Arsenal, we should be holding on to these players. Maybe he isn't good enough. Maybe he hasn't shown enough.
Is it a case as well? Apparently, he was tipped to be offered the same deal that Bukayo Saka was offered, which is in around the 40 grand a week mark. Mm-hmm. Now, what I would say is that, do you want a player like that around your club who are holding your club to ransom for money when they are struggling for money, when he knows that we need to be investing in January and in the summer? And
he's not earned that contract.
No, he hasn't earned that contract at all, and he's got a tough avenue. He's got a tough avenue into the team. So for me, like, I understand people want to get themselves the best deal, but like you said there, Tom, the deals have to be earned.
No one will sign the one. There's a thing here in the States where you just sign a 1-year contract if you're not quite sure. It gives us a little bit more control, and it prevents us from doing what we've done with Willian and you could potentially say Eddie Nketiah. I mean, short-term contracts are just so. I mean, unless you're in your 30s, they're so rare nowadays. But I think they could be useful.
If Balogun was doing the damn thing in training, would he not be put in place of Nketiah? Nketiah continues to get matches. He continues to get subbed on. And at the end of the day, that speaks more for me that he's doing more in training.
I don't know, because I think Nketiah probably looks great in training. Balogun, it's game type situation. Look, I don't know that much about Balogun. I'm just using him as an example.
The sample size has been too small for that, though, Mike.
Right. And I think it's too small in training as well to say that he's probably underperforming Nketiah in training to where he hasn't forced him out of his spot yet. I think he needs game time at this level, and unfortunately we've left it too late because now we can't put him in if he's not committed to the club. If we extended him for a year with the promise of saying, look, at the end of the day, if we haven't played you the right amount of times, if we haven't done this, then it just hasn't worked out, and you can leave on a free, or we'll sell you in January to wherever you want to go. Yeah. That but we've let that go now because we're in that point where we we have absolutely no leverage at the end of the day.
Whilst I think the situation is very much I think it is exaggerated by a lot of people, and I think that there are people that are worrying about it too much. What I will very happily criticise the club for is I think they've handled it horrifically. It's been handled in a horrible way. And there should be a line, and I said this on a previous show, that youngsters should get to a stage where there's 2 years left on their deal. If they're rated by the club with 2 years left, you add a year extension onto that minimum, or a 2-year extension onto the 2-year deal, or you sell them at that stage. You can't let these youngsters, because a lot of people were saying that we should offer Balogun silly money. But if the club do that, and say if the club had offered, even if that thing was true, about the £40,000 for Saka thing, if we'd have offered Balogun that amount of money, you got any youngsters coming in behind Balogun, look at that contract being signed and go, I'm just going to run my deal down because you're going to offer me what the hell ever I want, because if I'm doing enough.
All of a sudden, we're offering Tyrese John Jules $100 grand a week.
Yeah, well, thankfully his deal runs out in 2024, so we're quite lucky on that in that one. And Moller's signed until then as well. And what Arsenal are actually doing now is they're signing players on a deal with a year option that the club have the choice to. We've done it with Rekic and we've done it with Holding. So that's something the club are improving with their contract situation. That we've discussed a hell of a lot today, which is great, and I'm surprised we got through so much, considering the witty banter we've experienced today.
Have we reached the end of the day?
We have reached the end of the day.
Then I guess we better tell you. The three of us decided to take this pod seriously, with one exception.
You all meant to say something, or
wasn't the three of us? It was.
Well,
you were the one that brought up. This is your idea.
You gave.
I think it was my idea, but you made the phrase.
So the final score is Owen 6, Andy 29, and Mike 33.
You say interesting? Is it?
Because Mike would just yell at the end of the day at the end of a sentence.
All right. Well, that was the game. So we played at the end of the day game.
Tom, the reason why Owen got something in his eye was because you said it.
You said it because you said it at the end of the day, and he couldn't.
You said at the end of the day, and just one of your comments.
I got 6. That's pathetic.
You came out of the gate strong, and then you just gave up.
Someone
Yeah,
put
well-
that in the chat box as well.
Yeah,
earlier.
David Ziegler, who knows us very, very well, is the only one that sussed that out.
Nah.
Goodness sake, why have I not? Oh.
I'm surprised
Right, I'm
you didn't
making a
pick
new.
up on it.
You are not allowed on together. Like,
Oh, come on.
There was some
It could have
quite
been worse.
interesting discussions there.
I thought we should say, do that same game with the word poon, but
I
you know,
said no.
at the end of the day,
No.
oh,
they held me
God.
back. So
if you've enjoyed the boys' game, drop a like for the video, guys.
Arsenal.
And subscribe. We've got one more thing to quickly do before we wrap up. Because at the end of the day, we need to do our predictions. So
I was waiting for you to say it. You would have broke me completely. I wouldn't have been able to salvage
it's not
myself.
something I say. I always say the words,
You
it'll
said
be
it once.
interesting to see. Like, I always
said it
say that.
once.
You said it once, and we all almost freaking died when you said it.
That's why I was saying. I said it like
I
3 times. Why are you laughing?
I started texting him, and that's when you were like, "Are you guys texting each other?"
Yeah, because it was so obvious you were. Like, I could tell what was going on. Oh, so anyway, our next game.
We love you, Tom.
Our next game is Newcastle on
Best up
Monday.
and coming journalist we know.
Let's get your thoughts on that, Mike. So, prediction and can fish fly? Yes or no?
We've already answered the can fish fly question.
Can fish fly?
Fish fly. Who do we play? Oh, it's Newcastle on Monday, right? Newcastle at home. I'm gonna go 2-0 to the Arsenal
Owen.
with two goals from Tyrese John Jules.
Is St. Maximin back?
I don't know. He hasn't had his press conference yet, Bruce. I don't think. I'll have a look.
If he's back, I'll go 3-1.
Cautious update on St. Maximin, so it'll be a 50-50.
If he's back, I'll go 3-1.
He is training today or tomorrow, which is good news, but he's out for around 7 weeks, so we'll have to monitor. I doubt he'll start.
Yeah, no, I'll go. Yeah, I'll agree with Mike. 2-0. And can fish fly? Of course they can fly. I sent you pictures about this before. Don't be stupid.
I was gonna say 2-0 as well, and I'm gonna go with an Aubameyang brace.
Oh, wow, that would be a turn up for the books. Fair play. I'm going to go for 3-0 because I just love being an optimist. But yeah, 3-0 for the Arsenal, and then making everyone look a little bit silly again. Maybe they're overreacted for this Palace game. That'd be nice. Thank you, Chatbox, for sticking with us throughout this previous hour of sly tactics from these three.
No one can talk Arsenal like the three of us can. So
we will see you again tomorrow for a Saturday, and there's a day between. Oh, the expert members pod. That's what's tomorrow. A few members are going to come on tomorrow. Look forward to meeting a few more of you guys for the first time. That'll be fun. So that'll be about 8:30, same time as it was today. If there's any big news in the afternoon, obviously we'll cover that with a Raw Reaction show. But yeah, it's been a pleasure to speak to you as always. If you'd like to win the signed Patrick Vieira shirt for this week's competition, the link is in the description for that. So make sure you check that out. And there's also other stuff on there on Football Prizes website too. So check them out. We'll see you again very, very soon. And as always, up the Arsenal.
at the end of the day.